Welcome to the Mad Ones. I'm your dear Lord, my voice sounds weird host, Cam Harless. And with me as always is your dwarf woman hostess, Miss Jessica Green.
That was that was a low effort introduction, Cam, I gotta say.
I know where my
compared to some of the whoppers you've given before, but I
I know
understand
where
your
my
voice is going. Yeah, your voice is going out. I'm gonna let you slide on that one.
Well, I'm just glad you shaved your dwarven lady beard
Thank
before
you.
getting on a
Yeah,
stream.
I like to look my best for the stream.
Yeah. I mean, it's a handsome beard, but
I also don't want to give anybody beard envy. So
that's true. I would be. I mean, it's thick and black, so it's like what everyone wants. All right. Well, my voice is kind of screwed up. I think it's laryngitis, and but so I'm gonna push through because this is an important conversation. Things have been going crazy on Twitter and on TikTok, and I am dumbfounded by how stupid some people are. Like the people who are very mad that abortion is banned everywhere now, allegedly. How stupid some of the things they say are, and I am giddy with that because God. But before we get to that, I do want to let you know that this show is 100% brought to you by the fans and patrons. So hit like, subscribe, and share the show with your friends. We've covered all sorts of topics, some clean, some dirty. So look for the tag that says explicit before you watch. Share them with someone who you think might be able to gain something from it. Also, you can join our Patreon for the occasional early episode, Zoom hangout, and our eternal gratitude. So patreon.com/themadOnes. And also grab a shirt or a mug over at wearethemadOnes.com/store if you want to rep us in our logo wherever you go. I'm going to mute the mic for just a second, clear my throat, and then I'm going to introduce the guest. So joining us tonight is a very special guest. So be on your P's and Q's and watch your language. Our guest works day in and day out helping women who have been through the tragedy of abortion. Her mission is to help them find the cross, forgiveness, and to forgive themselves, and to be set free from the pain that comes from having an abortion. So please welcome the woman who expelled me from her loins 33 years ago, my mother and the executive director of Abortion Recovery Alabama, Miss Cindy Harless. What's shaking, lady?
Me. My hands. It was like
it's been really, really crazy considering the last time we had you on. The very first question I wanted to ask you out of the gate was, did you have any inkling when we had you on several months ago that we would be talking about the fact that they just repealed Roe v. Wade?
Right.
No, I think that it was, of course, I got a little hints on the way. So I was really ready for it when it actually came through. I was waiting for it, but I don't remember when that was. I was on last, but no, I think that it was huge. It was just huge. It's something that we have been praying for. Well, I've been praying for since Cam was a baby, 33 years, and other people have been praying for 50. So it was really cool. It was really.
I think a lot of people were shocked. I don't think there was anybody who was fully prepared for the fact that might actually be a reality. I think even a couple of weeks leading up to it, it didn't even seem like that could really be real, because my entire life, abortion has been illegal, or it has been legal my entire existence. I never imagined I would be sitting in a place where that would no longer be a federally protected thing. And that, as we have come to understand, it's gone back to the states. It's gone back to the individual states to decide whether they want that in their state or not. It's not a national ban on abortion, as a lot of people have kind of come to phrase it in the media.
Well, I think that's what's funny is because, a lot of the pro-life talk over my lifetime has been about, not even necessarily repealing Roe versus Wade, because for a while it was just, we need to have a life, what do they call it? A personhood amendment. They didn't even say amendment, a personhood law at the federal level. And I was like, that won't hang constitutionally unless you amend the Constitution. I remember having conversations with Mom where I was like, okay, so first step has to be repealing Roe versus Wade and letting the states decide. And I thought it was funny because, you know, I did bring her around kind of to where I was in a lot of ways, I think. But I'm a little smart. But it was funny. I was on Facebook the other day, and there was someone who's actually been on the show before, a boomer, who was like kind of angry at people for celebrating the repeal of Roe versus Wade,
Hmm.
because they're like, they're not actually saving, no, you know, it's not actually saving anything. This is just, you know, celebrating the system rather than, you know. And I was just sitting there like, I understand people who want total abolition. I understand that completely. But I also understand celebrating if there's a heartbeat law, and you know, there's
Hmm.
you know, however many babies, however many women know after 6 weeks or whatever it is, you know, like there's these little wins for life, I think. And I didn't talk to him, and I want to. I've been thinking about what he said for like 2 days now. And I think the best way to phrase it, and you can disagree with me or give me tips, Mom, if you want to, or Jessica, but my first thought was, well, Joshua didn't defeat all of Canaan in a day. The cities had to be taken down piece by piece until they were able to get to the promised land. I mean, am I wrong? I feel like we can celebrate the fact, whether or not we like the Supreme Court and what they do, that hell, man, they're letting the states decide.
Yeah.
And like a lot of these states are like, no more. We don't condone
Yeah,
murder.
there's like 26 states, I think, that immediately banned abortion.
Hmm.
But the really cool part was, and to speak to that, is not only is it taken from the federal level where it didn't belong to begin with,
Right.
and putting it back down on the state level where our representatives can make a decision. It's also taking it out of a renegade court because it
Yeah.
was never law,
Hmm.
and
Right.
putting it back into the branch of government that's supposed to be dealing with it and make the law, which is Congress.
Right.
So you've got a renegade Supreme Court making law, and they shouldn't be making the law. And this actually should shift out, like, help all area. And it seems like a lot of their decisions that are coming down are saying, hey, this is not supposed to be a law made by courts. This is supposed to be in the Congress. It needs to be a
Hmm.
Right.
law, not
Yeah.
just
On the
a
state level
ruling.
too. Because like I said, even if they did a law in Washington, like any gun law they make in Washington D.C., for after all this stuff that's gone on, I don't care who it is. I don't think that the Constitution is necessarily going to stop it, except for in rare cases like what happened recently. But it's not constitutional, and it can't hold up to that scrutiny. But I think it's great to bring it down to the states, but there's also allegedly another ruling that's going to be coming down. I think it's on West Virginia first versus the EPA. And so essentially what that one might mean is that they are going to strip the powers of legislation from uh, federal executive agencies. So
Hmm.
agencies in the executive branch, like the FBI, the EPA, the what's the one, ATF, things like that. Anyone who's essentially passing laws, and the Congress has delegated their powers to these agencies. The FDA, who decided Juuls aren't allowed on the market anymore, who decided that Newport cigarettes couldn't be out there anymore, etc. If they actually follow through with this, that means all of those laws are null and void, and it goes back down to where it should be, which is the states.
Hmm.
And so, I
Hmm.
mean, there's a lot of weird mix up stuff. I mean, I'm never going to place my hope or my trust in the courts,
No.
but if they do that, I will pat them on the back, and I will say, you know what? I'm glad Trump was funny, and I'm glad he was able to put a dent in some of this stuff.
One interesting thing is that they claim that most of the country supports abortion and wants it to be on demand without restriction for any reason. And when you look at what occurred in the wake of Roe being overturned, that 26 states had trigger laws in place. It definitely shows that there is a disconnect between what they're telling you America supports and what America actually seems to be feeling. And I know that there are a lot of places where pro-life voices are suppressed, including and up to the pregnancy centers, the very places where women who don't want to have abortions can get aid and agency from. These places they're attempting legally to shut them down.
Yeah.
So
Did you see that? I retweeted it and I wanted to bring this to Mom as well. Thank you for reminding me. But what's her name? The Pocahontas?
Elizabeth Warren.
Elizabeth Warren.
I
She
forgot about that.
tweeted 2 days ago, and I just saw it today. With Roe gone, it's more important than ever to crack down on so-called crisis pregnancy centers that mislead and deceive patients seeking abortion care. My bill with Senator Menendez would stop these harmful practices. And I quote tweeted it and I said, this is quite literally and clearly antichrist. Because it is. Because you have spent, I mean, when like you said, after I was born, that's when you entered into the pro-life movement. So it's been my entire life. And so, you know, you worked at a company called Save a Life, or an organization called Save a Life for years. You were on their board of directors. You've been working in these fake abortion clinics for most of my life. And so that means when people say no one cares about babies after they're born, these people only care if the baby's born, I'm like, that's not true. Because I know, just knowing Save a Life, they had programs for, I think recently I heard they had programs for helping women find jobs, as well as they took classes and got certain bucks in order to pay for what's it called, formula and bedding and clothing for the babies, free ultrasounds, free counseling, all sorts of how to be a parent classes. And it's like, you're so full of crap. We care about these babies, and I don't know. It frustrates me that people just let them get away with saying that.
It's so true. It's so untrue. It is just a lie. That, for one thing, you do have your pregnancy centers who, like you said, they offer parenting classes. They offer they have nurses teaching classes on like how, like, you're going to have the baby, and nursing and all that. They have boutiques that have all kind of clothes. They have maternity clothes. They have food, and they network and get you into other areas. Not only that, but one of the things that I think is a really big thing that a lot of people don't know is there's a thing called a safe haven law. And in my understanding is all 50 states have it, and they have a little bit different criteria. I can speak to Alabama. In Alabama, if you have a baby and within 72 hours, you decide you don't want to keep that baby, you can take that to an emergency room, any emergency room in the state of Alabama, no questions asked, leave the baby there. And there are between 1 and 2 million people out there that want to adopt babies. And then they say, well, adoption's too expensive. And I'm like, we've got that covered too. Birthed out of Save a Life was a Lifeline Children's Center. And if you go through Lifeline, you can adopt these babies. It was a conflict of interest for Save a Life to do it straight up, but so they refer to Lifeline. So there are all kinds of pro-life adoption agencies out there that make it a lot simpler, and where they work with the mothers and help the mothers and set everything up. And also there are all kinds of children's homes out there. Doug Marshall, Kim, Doug Marshall. He is, like, I think, the president of the Presbyterian Children's Home here in Alabama. There are ranches. All of them are Christian. All of them are Christian. Would you show me the ones that are not Christian?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's part of
Mom. PP
They
Steve
wanna
wants
see
to
the
see
dog.
Sophie.
It's definitely driving me nuts. I thought that it canceled out. I'm sorry. Come here,
You know,
sir.
you're good. You're good.
Come here. Come here.
They
She
need proof
knocked
of
over.
life.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead, Jessica.
Well, I was going to say there is sort of like a disconnect there because at first you hear this sort. It's as though they have a script in a 3-ring binder that they're all sort of flipping through for their arguments. And one of
Yeah.
the first arguments you'll hear out of the pro-abortion side is, "Well, what are you going to do? You're going to adopt all of these kids." And then when people start coming out saying, "Hey, I'll adopt your baby. Don't abort your baby. I'll adopt it." Then the script gets flipped, the goalpost gets moved, and it's like, "Oh yeah, you just want to adopt the baby so you can indoctrinate it into your, Christian values or whatever." Like, yeah, what a
Wow.
terrible thing that I should adopt a child and teach it Christian values. Like, where is the downside here? And what do you want from us? Like,
Yeah.
there's no amount of whatever you're saying will help take care of babies. We'll hook moms up with classes. All of these things. It's an ever moving goalpost. Nothing will ever be good enough because it's
Right.
not about caring
Mm.
for the mothers, not even for them. It's about this ability to snuff out human life and consequence free. I connect this on my own personal like conspiracy theory level back to the sexual revolution. This all comes back to the sexual revolution and the consequence free sexuality, the free love movement. And part of that is not having to deal with the consequences of sexual activity. One of the most natural ones is pregnancy. And that's why they want this available.
Freaking
Because of
boomers and their summer of love ruined everything.
but there's
Actually, I
I
think it was a little bit earlier than me. So, but yeah, it was the 60s people.
Yeah. You were the
and who is
70s people.
look at who's in the government now in the form of the liberal progressive left side of our government are all people who were part of that sort of like beatnik 60s free love movement. They're all now the people who are in power. So these like sort of aging hippies are directing this I don't know, moral phronema of the moral direction of the country, which has been, everything that now we're seeing the results of are, drag queen story hour and a woman is not a woman is a man is actually a woman is a man. All of this stuff I think stems back in its originality from the free love movement, the sexual revolution, the
Yeah.
consequence of it.
Well, and a lot of that came, and this is further conspiracy, but it's true. I mean, look at MK Ultra during that time. Look at what the CIA did. There were things going on in the government to push this. I mean, I think, was it Nixon even talked about it in some way, because that was partially why he like sent, what was it, got crack or cocaine or whatever into black neighborhoods, because he was tired of dealing with the hippies or something. I forget what it was. I mean, it was wild. But let's not get too far off here.
Wow, we're going down a rabbit
I
hole
do
now.
want, yeah. Well, I do want to go back to, and I don't know if you'll remember this, Cam, or not, but I had a lady, I was out in front of an abortion clinic one time, and I had a lady who came up and she decided not to have an abortion. And I wasn't in her face or yelling at her or doing any weirdness. I mean, we were just kind of like, "Hey, I've had an abortion. Do you want to talk about it before you walk in there?" kind of thing.
Mhm.
And she came out and she told me that she was pregnant with twins, that she did not want them. And the only one that she would allow to adopt her babies would be me. And I don't know if you remember, Cam, but I went home and I talked to your dad and I said, "Hey, I told her yes." And he's like, "Absolutely. If she will keep those babies, we will adopt them."
Oh,
So
wow.
you have to see the heart. We have the heart. The heart is
Mhm.
there.
It interests me that you're talking about standing in front of a excuse me, I can't talk, I promise. Talking about standing in front of an abortion clinic. nowadays, to me, that seems like an activity that could be quite dangerous because of all the types of violence that breaks out during conflicts between different sides of protesters. And
Well, all of ours are closed now, so
Yeah. I called
we don't
wow.
have anywhere to go. to
I call
Right.
I called the West Alabama Women's Center this morning just to
Yes,
see if they'd
in
even answer the
Tuscaloosa.
phone. Yeah, just to
Yeah.
see if they'd even answer the phone. They did, and I hung up because I'm not going to talk to a demon. But they're at least in the office.
Okay.
But no, it's even outside of strictly Christian circles. You know, we have a friend named Trey who has fostered to adopt, I think, 4 or 5 children. Our friend David has fostered to adopt 3 and has foster children in his home right now. And it's so funny to me that we're having these conversations and they're saying, oh, well, we have to have this abortion, this killing, because otherwise they'd go into the foster system, right? And so that's their lines. And it's this
Yeah.
clear statement of I care. They're trying to say I care about these kids, so we must kill them so that they are not in the foster care system, instead of saying I care about these kids, I will
Yeah.
foster one. Like, you don't
I have
care about
something.
the kids.
I have
Well,
something to
can
say
you
on that.
imagine being a foster kid that has grown up in the foster system and everybody's saying, well, you should be dead.
Yeah. This is something I've kind of felt too as a kid. I grew up basically in poverty. And over, I hear the line like, you know, if there are children who are born who otherwise would have been aborted, they will grow up in poverty. And it's just line of, you know, poor kids are better off dead. And like, sorry, you know, I grew up in what, you know, I don't want to like get into any details or anything like that, but I grew up in what people would consider pretty impoverished circumstances. And I'm still glad I did that rather than not existed or was murdered. So I have trouble understanding that line. And when you point that out to people, they default to some other script note about, well, you just want to control women's bodies. And it's like, no, you know, this is, go ahead, Cam. You have something on that?
No. I just had a thought, and that came through my finger, and I wanted to remember it. So sorry.
Okay, your thought came through your finger. Yeah. So there's like, you know, again, it's sort of like a script notebook where if you answer one argument, they'll pivot to another. And all of the arguments assume malice on your part, no matter how many different ways you can show that your intentions are not malicious, that you actually care not just about the children who would otherwise be murdered, but the women who will commit these murders with the help of doctors and the future that they have to experience after that. And it doesn't matter. It's an ever-changing goalpost. And that's what's so infuriating about it is like when you really start to examine the ethical arguments, they don't stack up and they don't hold water. It's just anger and emotion getting thrown in your direction. And people are so afraid to raise the anger and ire of the progressive left because they've demonstrated a clear willingness to commit violence as a result of it, that they'll do anything to back down. And so I think that's why this decision is so shocking. Like, how on earth did the court have the balls to do this?
Well,
And
I mean, I'm surprised, even though
yeah,
because when that thing was leaked, I was like, "There's no way," because you know, just in your mind, you get to this place where you kind of think that the things that have been there your whole life can't change
mhm,
or won't change, or there's never
right.
going to be any will for change or anything like that. Um, and I mean, I was, even though I saw that thing, I knew it was coming down. When it happened, I was still floored.
Mhm.
Still floored. What year was Roe versus Wade decided? 1972?
1973.
1973. And so, and you know, your point about it coming out of the 60s, you've got this, it's a very good point because 1973 is when they legalized abortion across the 50 states. That timeline isn't on accident. So, I mean, it's
There's a couple of people in the chat I'm noticing who, when we've referred to the act of abortion as murder, have popped up with, it's not murder, it's not murder. That's a fundamental disagreement. Like if you believe that the ending of a human life is murder, then abortion is murder. If you don't agree to that point, then we're not even having the same conversation. You just don't think the killing of a human being is murder. I know there are people who think that. For example, that think that the killing of a human being in war is not murder. The killing of a human being in the commission of a crime is not murder. So there are ethical arguments about that. But if we don't agree that an abortion is murder, we're not having the same conversation. So I understand why you feel the need to say that. But you're telling me, who thinks abortion is murder, oh, well, no, it's not. And based on the precept that it's not, here are my further arguments. That's why it's not. That's why this conversation is not working.
Right.
There are people who are apparently pro-choice here in the chat, and I just want to address them. It's not that I'm like, that I think you're evil or stupid or anything like that. I don't even think we're having the same conversation. So maybe that's something that we should address. Sorry, go on.
No, I mean, I noticed it, but my typical tagged on, that is not one of those conversations that with someone who comes in and makes the diametrically opposed statement and doesn't give any sort of explanation as to why, you're not going to reach them most of the time. Mm-hmm. And so my time is better spent talking about what we could do to help women who want to have abortions, or to help babies, or to help in the foster care system, or any other number of things besides just having an argument with someone who's not going to change their mind. I don't care. But I do think, here's a funny thing. For like the last few years, you would see these dumb arguments on Facebook or on Twitter where people are saying, oh, well, it's not murder because it's legal. See, look, it's the illegal killing of a person. And I'm like, you don't have that argument anymore, at least not in Alabama, in Georgia, in Florida soon, in Mississippi soon, in Louisiana. Like you lost an argument, and that's kind of good. I like that. I like that they can't appeal to the government to prove whether or not something is murder.
I wanted to ask you. Oh, go ahead, Cindy. Please go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say, I think there are like 3 different people out there, and or at least from what I'm picking up, there are people out there that are Christian and that they have studied the Bible, and they know that life begins at conception. And even in Psalms 139, it talks about God had planned the baby's life before conception. Mm-hmm. So we've got those people out there. And then we have the ladies that have had an abortion and they don't want to believe that they had murdered a child. It's just too horrific to think about. So they're in a justification mode. They're trying to justify what they did. And I get that. My heart goes out to them. So I'm not judging them. I do think that they need to know that I respect where they're coming from, and that we can move, but we can still have a discussion. Yeah. And then there are people out there who really, I think they've just bought the rhetoric and bought the lie that and the science is on our side. I mean, the science is on our side. Scripture and science is on the side of the pro-life movement. So they don't have a logical place to come from. Their arguments are always emotional. But we need to look and say, okay, what's behind that emotion? What is your fear? What's going on? Talk to me. Let's see where we can find some middle ground. And there may be people who refuse to do that, and I'm aware of that. And there are people that may want to harm me or harm pregnancy centers, like you were talking about earlier, or even adoption agencies and stuff. There are people out there. And at that point, it scares me that maybe they have gone so far that they can't come back, that their conscience has been seared. Mm-hmm. But I don't want them to see me as being judgmental. I want them to see me as saying, hey, she's willing to talk. She understands where you could be hurting, and let's see if we can have a conversation. Maybe it's a possibility. I don't
Right.
know.
Well,
I have hope.
my point of what I said is not that I'm not willing to have a conversation, but it's taking the, the proverb that you don't cast pearls before swine. If you know that someone's not going to be listening, not going to be having the conversation, is going to be belligerent and offended by your opinion, when you're not even talking to them, why would I argue with you? That's wasting my time and yours.
Well,
And
my
if
point
if I'm stupid enough to do that, I'm probably going to get mad too at a certain point. So why do that?
And my point to them is to these people also is, if you're trying in genuine interest to have a conversation with someone who's pro-life, when you come at it from that angle, you're losing your audience. So it's like, yeah, the people who are having the pro-life conversation to others have that duty, just like Cindy said. That's so important. And the way you approach others with a pro-life argument, I 1000% agree with that. But also, clearly we have people who are pro-choice in the chat. They came here because they were looking to scrap or to argue, whatever it was. And it's like, hey, if you genuinely want to have a conversation with pro-life people, don't bust in the door and say, hey, an abortion's not murder. You've lost your audience at that point. Like, really, you should really attempt to try to see it from the opposing side's point of view. I happen to have a good footing in the opposing side's point of view because I was that middle person that Cindy was talking about. I had an abortion, and the thought of it was so horrific to me that it made me reject not only the concept that it was murder, that an abortion might be murder. I bought solely into the clump of cells ideology, but also to reject God, to reject the faith of my heart. I became a stone cold, militant, angry atheist for most of my adult life and was miserable in it because I was too horrified to mentally deal with the fact that abortion is murder. So I have had my foot in both of these camps. And I'm just trying to, for the people I know who are in the position that I was once in, if you're really trying to have a conversation with pro-lifers, accept the fact that they believe that abortion is murder and try to have the conversation from that perspective. You might get just a little bit further in it. I'm just trying to help everybody come to the table a little better.
Right.
Does that make sense?
That's good. Absolutely. Yeah. That's good. I mean, we want to minister. We want to bless. I mean, I'm not going to be shy. My program, my abortion recovery program, is a Bible study. That is where I'm coming from, because to me, that's where the truth lies. So I don't make any calls. I don't back off of that. And one of the things that you said earlier, that pregnancy centers act like they're fake clinics or whatever. I want you to know, when they answer, my sister is on staff at Safe Harbor in Pensacola, Florida, and when they answer the phone, when I answer the phone, I get calls. Kate, I want to have an abortion. Can I make an appointment here? I'm like, no, that's not what I do. But our very first thing out of our mouths is, we do not refer to or do abortions. We do not do abortions or refer for abortions. That is the first words out of every pro-life center's mouth when they answer the telephone. And then they say, but you can come in, you can verify the viability of your baby and see whether or not you even need it, or if you're really actually pregnant. I mean, some of those tests that are from the dollar store that, they've been out in a truck and they've gotten all heated and gross, and, they may not be accurate. So, and then when they come in, we do try to share the love of Christ with them, but we're not going to shove it down their throats. Now, I can't speak for every pregnancy center across the whole United States, but I just know the ones that I have worked for. We're very loving, and we just want to help, and we don't try to shove anything down anybody's throat.
Yeah.
We just offer them the options.
I will point out that I think it's funny that I've seen the word libertarian in the chat a couple of times. I'm not a libertarian.
You've got the wrong idea.
I'm not a conservative. I'm not a Republican. I'm not any of that crap. But
sir.
one of the reasons I wanted to disconnect myself from that bandwagon was because so many times when you're having conversations with people who are libertarian and who would otherwise say that they're pro-life, or they'll say abortion's evil, or any other number of things, and they'll have a moral, they have some sort of morality that they believe in and mention, they then start talking in this way of nuance. So like one of the things I heard recently was, oh, well, you know, I think getting rid of abortion federally is good, but a total ban on abortion would be just as bad. And I'm like, how? There are millions of abortions done every year. How is that worse or the same as the other? It doesn't make any sense. And I'm just sitting here, and there are these, oh, well, yes, I think that I've even heard people say, yes, I think that it's murder, but it's your choice. I'm like, you can say that all you want to. I'm not going to I'm not going to chain myself to that. I'm just going to tell you, yes, I am pro-life. Yes, I believe that there are biological realities and that human life matters. And so if you are wanting to end the life of human beings, I am not on your team. Period. Full stop. We'll never be on your team. And so it's these arguments, these piddly, nitpicky arguments, and people, claiming that I'm making a point. You're not listening. It's like, you haven't made a point yet, because I don't think you know what a point is.
Okay,
and I get annoyed.
to address some of the points that they will make, though, things that they bring up as examples of why abortion needs to remain completely legal for any reason at any time up to any point are these like wild contrived scenarios that even under the best of circumstances only account for like 0.5% or 1% of all total abortions. And the rest of the time it's being used as birth control. And that's not an acceptable, if the government has to exist at all. I mean, let's take it from like a completely libertarian anarchist perspective. If the government has to exist at all, if the basic precept of it is that it can't protect unborn fetuses from murder, then it has no point at all. Like, if it's got to exist at all, let it proceed in the most basic function of protecting the most innocent of lives. And that, if not, there's no point to it. There's just absolutely no point to it at all. So it's like either you're a complete and total anarchist who believes no laws should exist for any reason at any point for any person because they might restrict somebody's will or freedom or whim, or you acknowledge that there should at least be, if there is to be a government, the function of protecting an unborn human life. And if not, what's the point? Let's go back to bonking each other over the heads.
What's wrong? What you just went, whoa, what's happening?
I'm sorry. The dog just bit my finger. She's under the table.
I was like, oh no. I was like, Cindy's about to give me an earful.
No, not at all. I thought you did very well. Very well. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I haven't thought about it that way. That, I mean, the main purpose of government is to protect their people, right? I mean, that's
Allegedly.
one of the main.
Allegedly. If that's its stated purpose, then that's the first person in line for the protection, right? Like, if not, then what are
baby? Yeah.
Then who or what is the point? Why can't we just murder each other in the streets? You have something I want, and I want it more than you, and I'm stronger than you. So why should I just kill you and take what I want? Because you're restricting my freedom. I mean, that's really like
what it's happening, though, right? Like in Seattle and Portland.
Depends on where. Yeah, I was about to say it depends on where you are in the world. That doesn't mean I support full-on authoritarian government. I mean, surely there's some room to understand what a stupid claim that is, that I'm an authoritarian because I don't think you should murder babies. Like, really, are we so far off into clown world that this is, sorry, I'm losing my voice now too.
I think that what's interesting about this situation and this point of the conversation is there are people who won't like me anymore, or who will be sad that I believe that abortion is wrong and shouldn't happen. And you know what? That's fine with me. What am I going to do? I'm not going to pretend that biology doesn't exist, that a unique DNA doesn't exist. I'm not going to pretend that that clump of cells doesn't become a human person. I don't care if you, I don't care. But why would I? I'm just not, I'm not interested. And I'm not interested in debating people. If someone comes to me with a conversation and a discussion and wants to know my views, I'm more than happy to have a discussion. But I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to
there's no
debate with
point in
you.
that.
What am I going to what do I win if I win a debate with someone and then they don't change their mind? Half the audience thinks they won, the other half thinks I won. That's a waste of my time. I could be doing
This is
better
what
things with my life.
This is what I'm trying to drive at. And I know people think I'm just getting like, my wig is on fire, but it's not. It's that we can't even agree to basic terms. We
Yeah.
can't agree that a fetus is a human life. If we
Right.
can't agree to basic terms, there's no discussion. It's not me being a dick or I don't want to discuss anything with you. I'm sorry, Cindy. I'm working on it. I'm gonna put $1 in the jar. I promise.
Wait, did
But
you say
it's
that
not.
word?
Yeah, I did. I'm sorry.
Which one did you say?
I'm not going to repeat it. Then I'll owe the jar $2.
$2.
What I'm saying, it's not even like you and I could probably have the person, pro-choice person, random royal we out there. We could probably have a beer and enjoy each other's company. I don't think you're a bad person. What I'm saying is we can't have this discussion rationally because we're not prepared to agree on terms. You
Right.
do not agree that a fetus, a human fetus, is a life, a unique human life. The DNA says otherwise. We could have that discussion, but if your starting point in the conversation is that a fetus is not a unique human life, there's nowhere we can progress from that point on. We have to agree to disagree. I know that's something no one wants to do nowadays. We have to agree to disagree and maybe have separate countries, separate areas that we live in, because you can't force 350 million people to live together under one rule. They're fundamentally different, you and I. You pro-choicer and me pro-lifer, we have fundamentally different ways of being. I say we go live in two different countries. That's the peaceful solution.
Let me ask this question. I have been wondering this ever since I've seen it. I keep seeing all these people in New York and they are losing their minds and they are protesting and going crazy. Do they not know they can go tomorrow and have an abortion if they want to? It's a completely pro-choice state. I don't get it. I mean, I can understand it if it was a pro-life state and they couldn't have the abortion. But why are these people who still have that option going nuts?
Well, let's talk about that because there are a bunch of myths being spread by the media right now. Chiefly among them is that the states where you do have trigger laws are doing total abortions, because you'll see in the articles written over and over again, near total abortion ban. And they want you to think abortion under almost every single circumstance is banned, when in fact, in cases like ectopic pregnancy, where the life of the mother is in danger, of course, these medical procedures are available for emergency circumstances, not for birth control. And also, again, I think we could have an ethical discussion about whether the exemption for rape and incest is actually ethical. I'm not sure that it is. That's a discussion we could have when we agree on terms. But yeah, media. Go ahead.
One thing that I found interesting, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, was I don't know if you realize this, there's a lot of conversation about ectopic pregnancies, and there was this fake story going around a couple days ago. But they call it an abortion, and there's actually a debate within medical people and otherwise about whether or not that's even the right word for what that is, because it's not exactly an abortion. in the same way that it's a different medical procedure altogether. And I need to find it, but this girl
See if I can
who is a doctor and pro-choice laid it out on TikTok, and I was like, I didn't expect you to say that, number one, and number two, yeah, we need to call it something else because that's not what that is. And
Right.
one of the things they were like, oh, well, there's this, I forget which state it was. They're saying that you can't get an abortion for ectopic pregnancies, and it's like, that's not even the law. They just said you can't prescribe abortion pills to these women because it will hurt them. It'll cover the symptoms of an ectopic pregnancy, and they still may rupture. They still will need a thing. And so it's just wild reading the bill versus reading what's being said about it.
Right.
Just insane.
Well,
It's night and day different.
That's another fair point to bring up, is about reading the actual opinions put out by the Supreme Court versus reading what the articles say about it, because there's actually a lot of good ethical, or rather not ethical, legal reasons for them overturning Roe v. Wade. That if Roe v. Wade had been codified into law, that it would have had a more legal standing, but it didn't. They didn't do that with it.
Yeah.
So honestly, I think that this fight, as far as the legality of abortion federally, is not over yet. I think that they will come at it from another angle, maybe a more sturdy legal angle. They'll have more of a sturdy platform, because even Ruth Bader Ginsburg herself said that the Roe v. Wade legislation was not strong, that it would not stand the test of time, and that it would be overturned. And she was proven right. And I know that if I were still on the pro-choice side, I would be thinking very strongly about, okay, what mistakes were made with the Roe v. Wade legislation? And how can we go forward in the future to ensure that that becomes enshrined in constitutional law? That's something that I don't think the protesters now understand, is that wasn't done.
Right.
It was shaky legal ground. So
it wasn't even
really
shaky. It was poorly argued. It was
Sure.
I mean, it was just a bad thing. And people said that immediately after it was written. Like, this is bad. This isn't going to last. This is bad precedent. And so it's wild to watch, just because there's a lot of bad precedent going on. And you're going to see people on the pro-life side and on the pro-choice side saying, trying to get bills put in to legalize it across all 50 states and ban it across all 50 states on the other side. But that's neither of those options are legal constitutionally either.
It's kind of
It's outside of the
infuriating.
purview of the federal government.
I'm almost kind of angry from a retroactive side of a person who used to be pro-choice, watching the way that the pro-choice movement is operating in light of this, and how in Michael Miles is the original person who said this, to credit him, that the progressive left in no way prepared their base for the fact that this was possible.
Yeah.
That the overturning of it came as a complete shock to everyone. And I think it was a major failing on their part not to make their supporters aware of why this was a shaky law, why it was so easy to overturn, nor have any kind of plan in place for what to do if that eventuality happened. And instead, we're having this personality campaign in the media scrambling to paint the picture that all of these states that are now, banning elective abortions are going to be piss testing you for pregnancy at the state borders, which is a ridiculous, that's an insane nonsense claim. They couldn't even get people to take COVID tests. You think they're going to stop women at the borders of Tennessee to piss test them? Are you out of your minds?
Yeah,
So,
well, and look at the people who are saying, oh, well, that means that women who've had miscarriages are going to be investigated for murder. And it's like, that the two things that they said recently happened with that were both women who'd gotten caught by police already and were high on meth, and their children were born meth babies, or would have been born meth babies, but they died due to methamphetamine use.
Right.
And it's like, you're not making a cogent argument. You're not using facts. You're just telling stories and hoping people believe them.
It's sort of interesting. I think they would, if I were on the pro-choice side, I would attack it from the angle of proving the personhood of a fetus. Like, I don't know. I would use different arguments, I think, than, it's just my right to do this without, it's destructive to their own argument to say that consequence-free sex is some kind of constitutional right. And that's what I think the argument has boiled down to, is that, well, I should be able to do whatever I want for as long as I want without any kind of consequences, even natural biological ones. That, because then it's like, oh, you're forcing me to give birth. No, birth and pregnancy are natural consequences of human sex. That's not something that anyone has forced upon you. It's a choice you made when you decided to have sex. And are we failing our young people this badly if we've convinced them that procreation is not the result of sexual activity? Like, where's the problem here? Did we not have that class in school? I got the permission slip signed. I heard the story. I know how it happens.
Yeah, she saw Real Sex 24.
I did. It's 25.
Whatever.
That's
I
where
was too young.
non-Christian kids got their sex education from. Was HBO had a show on in the 90s. It was called Real Sex, and it was on really late at night. And it was basically like a documentary that kind of went through, these are what prostitutes are, and this is what drag queens are. And I would remember being like 13 or 14 and being like, that's interesting, because no one had ever told me these things. And so HBO like exposed me to the ways of the world. But they did it in a very like documentary style way. I don't know. It was educational for what it was.
Well, I mean, I was surprised to learn that apparently this Friday there's going to be a 15-week ban in Florida. I didn't know that was going to happen at all. I know that DeSantis is in charge here, but I thought it was more purple than 15 weeks. But I think whatever. Cool.
I'm sorry, my microphone went out for a second, so I'm kind of like, okay, I missed the last couple of minutes. If you ask me something, I did. Abby Johnson wrote that when we were talking about the treatment for an ectopic pregnancy, and she actually gave me, I put the words down. It's see, I'm not a medical person, okay? Salpin I should just text these to you, Kim, and then maybe you can say them. You're better at that. But they don't even call it an abortion, this stuff. Right. And it's always life of the mother. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just text this to you, Cam, so that you can see if you can pronounce it. Because
what we were talking about while you were gone was actually like there are a lot of myths that are being perpetuated by the media that suggest a bunch of things about, the overturning or the different laws that the different states are enacting that are just kind of ridiculous. One of them, I'm not sure if you heard it or not, Cindy, was that they were going to stop women at the border and test them for pregnancy. Like,
I mean, that's just ludicrous. I mean, they're just making stuff up. They're grabbing for straws. And I mean, you just look at and read some of this stuff and some of the arguments, and I'm like, they're not logical, they're not based in fact. So you can't argue from that perspective. You have to look at it in an emotional way and see if you can help them get to a better place. But you're making some really good points. There are some people, and I know it, I've seen them. Yeah, I've seen people out on the streets, protesting and stuff, and they're not going to listen to a word we say. And I think you've got a really good point. We can be as loving and caring, but if there's a woman out there who's had an abortion and she needs help, hopefully, she'll stop when she's around her 30s, gets usually in their 30s, and they'll say, hey, why am I acting this way? Why am I so angry? Why is this happening in my life? Is there something to this? I always thought the abortion was a great thing. But in my life, when I went back to my abortion, I realized at that point it changed my whole life because I didn't trust my decisions anymore. I started having nightmares. I didn't know what the nightmares were. There were a lot of things that happened I didn't know related to the abortion. So a lot of this emotion that's coming out are women who probably have had abortions and they don't know what to do with all this emotional buildup that's going
Right.
on. And that's why we're here to say, hey, bring it, let's talk it through. Let's see if I can help you, and
Yeah.
there are several people that can reach out. It's not just us. Go ahead. I'm
Right.
sorry.
Well, and that's the interesting thing to me is you see these arguments happen, and you see one half of people saying, "Oh, this is just a religious argument. This is just a religious thing that you're talking about. It's not an argument outside of that." Um, and that's not true. Most of the people that you hear talk about this are making points out of biology. They're pointing you to medical stuff. They're pointing you to DNA and all of these different things. And I just, you have to wonder, because I think at some point, probably in the 80s, it was just a religious conversation. But it has grown. It has evolved.
Yes.
There are secular pro-life organizations. There are atheist pro-life organizations. There are
Mhm.
all sorts of them, and they're all based in biology. And the argument,
Feminist pro-life
Yes.
organization.
Yes.
It
yeah,
needs to be said. Yeah.
Yes.
but a lot of this is a philosophical argument when you boil it down. It
Mhm.
just has physical ramifications.
Mhm.
And so, like, people are arguing about whether or not it's a life, but throwing them in your opposition into the camp of this is just religious, or what's the opposite of that? What do they say? What would we say about them? Um,
I've noticed recently the argument is the devaluation of human life. That,
yeah,
you know, there are certain people that have always been thought of as less than human.
hmm
And just by society standards, this kind of person is less than human, and that is just the next iteration of less than
right.
human.
So this is what I meant. So, like, we could very easily write them off in any argument by saying this is an emotional argument and a selfish argument for you to have the sex that you want, and
Mhm.
with no repercussions, right?
Mhm.
And then they would say this is just a religious argument. You're just trying to push religion down my throat. But that's like the those are the edges. Those are the people who are not going to talk at all. If we want to have a conversation about this, we have to get into, like you said, the same definitions. What is life? When does it start? When's the DNA come into play? But beyond that, it's a philosophical argument.
That's right.
And you're not going to shake some people from thinking that fetuses aren't human or embryos aren't human. Or they'll send a picture of you send a picture of like a pig fetus, and they'll be like, you shouldn't abort this, and they're like, oh, it's not actually human, it's pig. These are like, they're dumb arguments. If we want to
Mhm.
have the conversation, let's have the conversation. Let's agree on terms and then have the philosophical debate that we want to have. And if we cannot find middle ground, if we do not feel like we can live with each other, we need to separate, because you're not going to have people who think that this is murder want to live next to and have to be around and perhaps pay for in some way murder. And in the same way, you're not going to want people who think it's just a choice and it's the woman's right to bodily autonomy or whatever. They're not going to accept or be happy about the opposite end.
Well, so this is kind of, I guess, what I wanted to ask Cindy. In a post-Roe world, which we've suddenly found ourselves thrust into, does that change the mission? Are we the mission always seemed to me the overturning of Roe v. Wade, the pro-life mission was the overturning of Roe v. Wade. We've gotten to that point. Does the mission change now? What does it look like going forward? And did you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I that may be the mission for a lot of folks. But as far as the pregnancy centers, as far as abortion recovery programs, we've got our work cut out for us, that we're going to have an influx of people coming in. We're
Mhm.
going to have moms coming in that need help, and we are just beefing it up. And all the pregnancy resource centers are just, and people are starting to volunteer more. People are starting to send money.
Mhm.
Of course, some of it's earmarked for security, unfortunately,
Mhm.
but the church is stepping up. So as far as that, we still have 62 million babies that have been aborted, which means there's 62 million moms out there that are going to need ministry. So my ministry will never go away,
Mhm.
not in my lifetime. And I think that the pregnancy centers will be even more. Now, as far as on the legal side of it, actually, I have a meeting Friday with a lawyer, and he's going to kind of explain that part of it. So I can't really speak to that now, but
Mhm.
I do know that there. What I have heard from this lawyer, that's he said that, or one of the pro-life things I was listening to, he was saying that now that it's, a lot of states would not ban abortion or have abortion laws because they knew there was a federal thing that would stop them. So why put the time and the money into passing some kind of law or some kind of
Right.
ban when it's not going to do any good? Now, a lot of them did go ahead and do it, Alabama being one of them, but there are others who did not. And we think that at this point, there's going to be a lot of people of the states helping the people that want to ban it, and other states will be going in and saying, okay, this is how ours is written, this is what we got passed, and this
Mhm.
is how. And so they'll just start. I think that that's probably where the legal is going to go, but
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
just my guess, with that.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
because half of the country is still pro, well, don't have any kind of bans on abortion.
Right. Right. And so you do think that
Or,
it's a lot more states than currently. Like there are states that had trigger laws, and quite a lot more of them than I realized that there were that had these trigger
well,
laws.
now my understanding, and I'm not a lawyer, but my understanding from what I have heard the people say is that there's some states, we had laws, like Alabama had laws on the books before Roe v. Wade ever. It was already against the law.
Mhm.
Now,
Mhm.
we did go in and get a Life Protection Act put in, and then Amendment 2 for the Alabama Constitution was changed by our friend Cam Matt Friday. And so we have the strongest abortion ban in the United States. But now, so ours was automatic. Now, there are some states that were like what you said, were triggered. It's like,
Mhm.
okay,
Mhm.
now it goes in. So I think what you're seeing is the ones that already had them on the books, and then the ones that triggered, and then there are a lot of them out there that would like to go in that direction, but they haven't spent the time and money to do so.
Yeah, I'm looking at this breakdown of the different states.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like right now, at least from 2 days ago, it's banned in 7 states. Um, there is a ban or severe restrictions coming soon in 10 states. It's threatened in 11, and then it's fully legal in 20 other states in DC. So, I mean, it's more than half of the country that's either banning it or trying to. And so
Mhm.
it almost goes to show that maybe we shouldn't be together.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, we say this like it's some crazy pie in the sky idea, this idea of national divorce. It's sort of a radicalist idea right now. But if you had told me a year ago that they would be overturning Roe v. Wade in June, I would have thought that you were crazy. I would have thought that you were a radical. So radical things can happen. And I think that because of the fundamental ideological splits that are happening between the people of this country, that the peaceful solution is for us to become separate countries. And I don't know if that means 4 separate countries, 3 separate countries, a loose confederation of states. I know you're not supposed to say that word, confederation, but there are peaceful ways to go about this. We don't have to have a civil war. We don't have to create a situation where 50 or 49% of us are always forced to live under the rule of the other 51%. That's a tyranny of the majority. If we're really experiencing this fundamental disagreement about what is life and whether or not that should have any kind of legal protection, that's too fundamental of a difference, I think, to remain citizens of the same country. Just personally, I know that there are others who would see the breaking up of America as a truly, sad or loathsome event. And I understand that because of the nostalgia that we bear for our country. But is the other option that we should have another civil war? Is that really because that's where all of this leads.
Yeah. I'm going to read what Mom sent before about ectopic pregnancies.
Okay.
The treatment for an ectopic pregnancy is a salpingostomy, salpingectomy, or laparoscopy. The treatment for a septic uterus is antibiotics or delivery. The treatment for a miscarriage that your body won't release is typically or is either cytotec tablets or a D&C. Both are allowed and not considered abortion because if you have miscarried, then your child has died already. An abortion is when you terminate the life in the womb. So,
and I think that was
clear enough?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's the main point is that, like the ectopic pregnancy, I'm not sure if that one would still be alive, but if that ectopic pregnancy is in the fallopian tube, and if the mom and the baby would both die, so of course you've got to go in there and do that. And all of Alabama's laws are for the mother, the life of the mother. And we're not condemning moms, because these women, if they were anything like me, they're just scared teenagers. And, 80% of them would actually have kept their babies if they had had the support from their partner or from their parents. But, they've bought the lie that, that they can go and do this, and you're taking care of something. It seems like an easy thing, and that you're going to come out and everything's going to go back to normal, but it doesn't. And most women will admit that abortion changes you.
Yeah.
And will admit that not only does it changes you, but you never forget.
Yeah.
You never forget that child.
So, since you've had this happen, seeing what you do and have done my whole life, I mean, it's hard for some people to understand my position since I've been in these different areas, or I make jokes. So obviously I must be this way or that way. I'm not like Kirk Cameron Christian who can't have fun, like God bless him, but he stopped having fun. But people don't really get that, and it's odd. But I've grown up around it. I've seen the things, I've seen the studies, I've seen the arguments, I've seen debates. This has been something that I've done a lot of research into. And like I've seen the outcomes of these things in ways that other people haven't. Like most people, Mom, you gave me a unique life when it comes to this topic. I am not like most other people when it comes to this, but I'm also just, I don't know. But since you're in your unique place and you help women who've had abortions, and you used to counsel women who are considering abortions, I'm sure you've had a lot of questions come your way from people who want to know what happens next. And we've kind of talked about the law thing, or what your reaction was, or what this means for you and the people that you work with. And so I'm just curious, are there any questions that have come up since Roe versus Wade was repealed that people are asking over and over again? Like, are there questions that you feel need to be answered and that you can you have insight in that other people might not have.
Yeah, I have been getting a lot of questions about the ectopic pregnancy thing. That's been a big one. And I guess really that's the one that I've gotten the most. And whether it's life of the mother kind of deal. And I don't know any state that it does not take the woman's life into consideration.
Yeah.
There's
Right.
no law that I'm aware of out there that doesn't do that. But one of the things you were talking about, my experiences, I can remember when I was at the pregnancy center, and I would always get the women, like we had a pastor's wife call one time, and I was there, and they knew I'd had an abortion. And so they had the woman come in. She had just had an abortion. It hadn't been that long. And she came into the center, and I'm like, I don't know what I can do, but pray for her and tell her my story and just love on her, you know. And so when she came in, it's like the pastor's wife just did not know what to do with her. And so she came in, and we went into the room, and she got down on her hands and knees. And she grabbed me and she said, please pray that God will put the baby back into my womb.
Oh, jeez. That's an incredibly painful thing to hear, especially knowing you can't do anything for her.
Yeah.
I just hugged her and prayed, that God would help her. And at that point, I wasn't actually doing the abortion recovery. It was just, I was just a counselor at the time, and had been through recovery. But I have known women that have, that was in my class when I very first went through, and she could not bond with her living children. And well, she was never able to have children. That's really the hard part. Do you realize that 30 or somewhere around 30% of women will never have but one pregnancy?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What if that's the only child you'll ever conceive, and you have an abortion? These women come to me, and I'm like, it's so hard. It's so hard when you see that pain. And I had one woman who had one baby, and she said, I won't have any more. She refused to have any more children because she was so afraid that if she had another one, that God would take the other child. That she was always waiting for the next shoe to drop. I mean, these women are traumatized by abortion. And a lot of them are just like me. They shoved it down and shoved it down and shoved it down for years. And then, but you can only shove it down for so long, and then it starts bubbling back up again. And then you've got to figure out where these emotions are coming from and deal with them. And the only one that will absolutely make any difference is Jesus. And that's where I found my healing. And that's all I have to offer, because I know the truth of the Word of God. And, but I'm here to tell you there is hope, but I'm telling you, it's tough. It's tough. It changes you. It changes the way you feel about yourself. 67% of women that have had an abortion have suicidal thoughts. See, that's what I want to say. I don't want to argue with you whether or not abortion is right.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's not in my heart, and you've got to deal with these emotions. Let's talk about it. And one of the reasons I think is really huge, and one of the reasons I had an abortion, if it had not been illegal, I don't know if I would have had an abortion.
Yeah.
Because I would have had to consider I was breaking the law.
It doesn't seem to occur to people that there are people who don't do things because they're illegal. I know that that's kind of an anathema to the libertarian-minded person, that, well, criminals just commit crimes whether there's laws or not. Yes, that's partially true. But there is a subsect of society who remains quietly constrained by the force of the law. And whether you like it or not, if you walk around knocking down all of the laws from here to the end of the end of the coast, you're not going to be able to stand up in the winds that blow after you have knocked down every wall that stands between you and the thing that is quietly constrained by the law and some people.
Well, and
Go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, not to mention, if you look at Roe versus Wade, it forced states who had laws on the books, like Alabama, to offer this now. And so whether or not it was culturally unsound, regardless of law in certain parts of the country, and if that hadn't been forced on people throughout the 50 states, then that conversation may not have ever happened, because it wouldn't have been an option culturally. But it was shoved into the zeitgeist. It was shoved into, and I mean, they used to say safe, legal, and rare, and they won't say that anymore.
No, it's unlimited and without apology. I've seen the signs that say unlimited and without apology, like for any reason. It's birth control.
Well, let me ask this question. If Planned Parenthood, and they have stated that only 3% of their business is abortion, why are they freaking out if they don't, and closing all their centers because abortion's not legal anymore?
Yeah, do they not care about giving out contraceptives
Mammograms.
or they don't, and they don't even really do the mammograms.
They don't do the mammograms. They just refer.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, they're just shutting down. It's only 3% of their business, but they're shutting down anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
y'all,
that's just a thought.
If y'all have never looked into Margaret Sanger, and I know talking to the two of you, you both know what I'm talking about, but if you're out there in the world and you just think that like Planned Parenthood and elective abortion is such a great thing, you should look into the people who pioneered those ideas in this country in the first place and why they were pioneering those ideas. They come from an absolutely white supremacist, racial prejudice. It's some of the most disgusting things you've ever heard. Eugenics. Yeah, there's a lot of people in this world that they don't think should exist. And you hear it in their rhetoric. The foster kids, the poor kids. Oh, think about all of the Black mothers who won't be able to have abortions. They're listing out to you the people that they don't think should be on the planet. And I have a rule that has served me well in my life, which is that when someone tells you who they are, listen to them. They're not joking around. That's who they are. And these are the people they don't want on the planet. And, you know, there's other ties to other kinds of ideologies that the abortion movement and the elective, elective abortion movement specifically through Margaret Sanger have specific racial biases in this country, which now is so torn apart by its apparent racial bias, but won't look into the idea that these kind of ideas were pioneered to wipe Black Americans off the face of this country. And this is fact. You can go on Wikipedia right now and you could go a few clicks away and read the writings of these people. Even back to Darwin. These people are racist, and all of these ideologies are specifically anti-Black. And so if that's a concern of yours as a country moving forward, that we need to be like inclusive of Black people, let's try not wiping them off the face of creation. Let's give that a try. And, you know, I don't know, if I were seeking to be anti-racist, that's maybe a place that I would start.
Well, you have to give a lot of credit to Alvina King, Martin Luther King Jr.'s niece, because she had abortions. And, you know, she has come out in the Black community saying, you guys don't understand. They're trying to kill us. And they're doing a pretty darn good job of it. Because, and I don't have it in front of me, but the percentage of abortions compared to the population of Black people, they're wiping them out. It's horrible. It's horrible.
The rhetoric states it openly. when they talk
Mhm.
about, well, the abortion bans, they'll affect the people they'll affect most. They're telling you the people they want to be having abortions. It's the craziest thing that they say it out loud and no one bats an eye. Like,
Did you
that dude just
see?
said that foster kids don't deserve to be here. Like,
Did you see all of the? And there's a demographic that pushes it more than any other, and that demographic is liberal white women. But have you seen the tweets that were sent talking about Clarence Thomas, calling him the N-word, calling him these another slurs, and and others calling some people in the black community calling him a house N-word, and all of this other stuff because of
the mask is slipping like
and
big time.
it's wild, and it's hard. I am not a judgmental or moralizing person. I believe in morals, and I'll tell you what I believe, and I'll tell you what I've seen and what I think, and I'll be clear about it. But like I'm not going to be going out there calling people those names.
Yeah.
Just because I disagree with them. That's wild. Like I took a screenshot just in case that girl ever deleted the tweet, because I was like, this is something else.
So
One
Twitter didn't make her take the tweet down.
No, as far as I know, I'll have to check again. But I took a screen. I always take a screenshot just in case.
Wild.
No, it's all over there. Just search for Clarence Thomas. You'll find it.
I think it's been known a long time. When all of this sort of like Black Lives Matter movement stuff had gotten started, I was more to the left on most things. And I saw this current being voiced amongst people that, when the chips are down, these white women will turn on us. And I was kind of like, that's sort of racist, isn't it? And then I've been watching, the way that history has unfolded over across the last 10 years. And the minute these liberal white women have something go wrong in their lives, they are dropping N-bombs like they're going out of fashion. And it is crazy sauce. Like, they're specifically the ones running around calling everybody else in the world racist.
They're the ones who tried to cancel Joe Rogan for using it in quotes.
For everything.
What?
Yeah, no, I'm not buying it. It's a cudgel. That claim is a cudgel that they beat people with because people get out of the way for it. Like, I don't want to be considered a racist, so whatever, let me get out of the way. And right. I think that they've overused it to the point where it's not going to work anymore. Because if you really start looking at, like, what are some of the victims of this ideology, it's not actually, it's not them that's having their young people wiped off the face of the planet. It's all of the people they list when they talk about who will be affected by abortion bans. It's people of color. It's poor people, kids in foster care, all of the supposed victims. Those are the people that they're eugenically trying to wipe off the map through this process of abortion. But again, I don't want to put too much of a tinfoil hat on, but there have been very wealthy people from the very inception of this country who've had that as their stated purpose, that they're going to wipe poverty off the map. And I don't think they're going to do it by ending poverty. They're going to do it by ending the people they think.
Yeah, look at is it Denmark, I think, that claim, it's one of the Nordic countries that claimed that they had essentially gotten rid of Down syndrome.
And how did they do that?
They didn't heal Down syndrome. They didn't find preventative care to make it so that Down syndrome doesn't happen anymore. No, they aborted most Down syndrome babies.
Yep.
That's how they got rid of Down syndrome.
I know a lot of women, just personally know a lot of women who were told in pregnancy that their baby would have Down syndrome, and then the baby was born and it did not have Down syndrome. And some people think that can be as much as 2 out of 3 cases where the doctors tell you that your child will have Down syndrome. So how many children are aborted because the mother is afraid of having a child with Down syndrome who wouldn't have Down syndrome in the first place? And, this is eugenics, to wipe a person off the map because they would otherwise have a medical problem is eugenics. That's what Hitler would have wanted. Congratulations.
Yeah, that's true.
Wow, wild times.
Yeah, we do. We live in wild times. I'm surprised we're
Um,
allowed to say so. We're not going to be allowed to say so for very much longer. Mark my words on that.
I will say, one of the fun things that I've seen, like on TikTok and on Twitter, are these women who are protesting and are making videos to protest. One of the most recent ones I saw, there are two ones that I keep hearing repeated. One of them was, "Hey guys, men, don't you know that if abortion goes away everywhere, then so will casual sex and hookup culture?" And I'm like, "Don't threaten me with a good time. Like, what are you doing here?" Like, and
That's
then what was
so good for society, right? That
right?
hookup culture's just been so good for us.
And then this other girl gets on there and she goes, "You know what you should do? Uh, Girls in states that can't have abortions anymore, as soon as that baby's born, after it's born, find a pro-lifer who says they care and then drop that baby off at their doorstep. Bet.
Bring it.
Do it."
Bring it.
I'm
Bring
literally.
it.
Can you literally just drop a baby off of my doorstep? Do you understand how hard it is to have a baby? Some people it's hard. Can you just drop a baby off at my doorstep, please?
Right. Well, so dropping babies off at doorsteps, and there's sex strikes that they're talking about, which are only going to affect mostly liberal men, and I don't think that's going to change anything. But they're also saying hookup culture is gone. It's
That's a
like, we're
good
going
way
to
not
punish
to
you.
get pregnant, by the way, is to not have sex. So
Right.
bravo.
Yeah, we're going to punish you by being exactly what you want us to be, more moral.
Cool.
Wild.
You know, one of the things too, I wanted to go back and visit for just a moment was that you were talking about the safe and legal abortion. And I had one lady, and I don't want to judge women that have had multiple abortions. I've
Right.
had several women come through my classes that have had multiple abortions. And once you've had the first one, you're 30% more likely to have another one because, oh, crisis pregnancy, this is what I do. It's just like a natural, okay, this is what I do. So
Right.
I don't judge women that have had multiple abortions. But I had one lady, and she was a Black lady, and she went through, she had multiple abortions, but she actually went in with the last one and she wanted that baby. She wasn't going to have it aborted, and there was she was having some spotting or something. She went to the hospital, and when she came out, she wasn't pregnant anymore.
Yeah. There
So
are
that's speaking to what you're talking about. Somebody
many
just
such
decided.
cases.
Really? That's the first one I'd heard. I was just floored.
No. It's unfortunate. This is getting into some dark territory here, but there are women who were non-English speaking women. So you're talking about women who have come up here from like Mexico, Honduras, anywhere in South America, who go to the hospital and they're having trouble with their pregnancy, they're, all of these things, and then they come out and they're not pregnant anymore. And there are programs that existed for a while in some states that basically condoned if a woman is, so the legal language they would use to get around it is to say that she's like indigent or not a fit mother, or, she doesn't even speak English. We're talking, a good 50 or
Wow.
so years ago. So it could be very easy to declare a woman who is from a foreign country, not a fit mother, and therefore we have the legal right to abort her baby. And that occurred. Yeah. I think especially affected were Native American populations. And so there's always been like a eugenics or extermination aspect that has kind of ridden sidecar to abortion ideology. And so, I mean, it's just to say that this
Wow.
kind of thinking has been to the benefit of women really just shows an ignorance of the history of how these kind of programs got started in our country. And it's really only a cursory Google search away to understand the sort of like scientific racism aspect that undergirded a lot of these elective abortion programs. So I just encourage people to search the history. It's right there out in the open. All you have to do is read about it.
Yeah, and if you, look at how things have shifted, because if you look at certain places in the country, there are abortion clinics that are disgusting, dirty, small, don't have trained staff, don't have a doctor there every day. Like, if you look at these places, the whole safe part of it is not always there.
Right.
And so since it's been such a right up until this point, you have people like Kermit Gosnell out there who runs an abortion clinic. Most of the girls and nurses that help him do these abortions are like under like 15, 16 years old, or not nurses whatsoever. And every time he does an abortion, do you know what he does? Do you know what this man does? And doesn't get questioned on it until he's caught red-handed. He cut off the feet as trophies.
What? I can't.
And this flew under the radar.
I can't.
Abortion was a right. And I'm just saying, that obviously we're having a new conversation now. There's a new
serial killer stuff. That's really like, that's not normal. That's not.
But
what happened to that guy? What's his name? Gosnell.
Gosnell. Gosnell. There's actually a movie
for years. Yeah, Nick Cersei made a movie about it.
Oh my!
But no,
goodness.
Yeah, he went years doing that, and no one ever questioned it.
No, sir. Is that dude still alive?
He's in prison.
Yeah, well, thank God for that. So that's what I'm saying.
With him for 5
You're gonna knock down all the laws in the world, and people like that are gonna collect foot trophies and wear them around on necklaces. People, you don't understand. This is a good thing.
Yeah, in the very least, if you are pro-choice, I wish you wouldn't be, but if you are pro-choice, this is a new conversation. We get to have the conversation. We get to have the debate again.
Yeah.
So take advantage of that. Listen to your enemy. They're probably not even your enemy most of the time. Listen to what they're saying. Listen to their way, and don't go in with preconceived notions as to what you want to believe. Take an honest look at the evidence. Take an honest look at the science.
I agree.
Don't just make arguments that have nothing to do with the topic at hand. It doesn't matter whether or not I'm Christian or not. I'm talking to you about a human life that is life, because it is both human, genetically speaking, and growing because it's alive. It's literally alive.
Yeah. The Christian thing is really kind of a cop-out too, because it's not. Yeah, there are so many people who are pro-life who aren't Christian, so it's not really an argument to me. It's like, okay, then what? Like, fine, okay, I agree, I'm Christian. Now what? Like, that means that you automatically, I'm convinced by what you've said because you've been named this name. No, you actually have to do the convincing. So like start from the precept that that we believe that fetuses are living human lives, unique individual human lives with unique DNA from the moment of conception, and then go from there.
Yeah, and not to mention, we had Kat Cattinson on our show years ago, not years ago, a couple months ago.
Feels like years, doesn't it?
A couple months ago, and she is a detransitioner. She transitioned to male and then came back, and we talked about her story. And one of the things I talked about with her and why I wanted to talk with her was this is a small group of humans that the transgender community and activists want to pretend doesn't exist, want to pretend that nothing they say is valid, etc. And the other group I can think of off the top of my head that's treated the same way are women who have had abortions and regret them.
Right.
These are people that they do not want you to listen to. And so anyone out there who's listening to this, probably not now, because if you're pro-choice, I don't think you stuck around. If you did,
those dudes definitely took off.
Talk to a woman who has had an abortion and how it's affected her. Let her tell you her story instead of going into your talking about rights or freedom or whatever. Let that woman tell you her story and then tell me that it was not harmful to women.
Mhm.
Tell me that then. But they do not want these women to talk, and that is an injustice. Okay, so we did have a couple of questions pop up in the chat. I want to ask our last big question and some other stuff, but we're at
Before
about
your
an hour
poor
and a half.
voice goes out, because I can hear it.
It's
As
hard.
well.
It's not easy,
Yeah.
because I have to keep pushing past it. Is there anything else that you want to mention? I know I have. So let me do this first before I ask you that. For one, if you would like to follow my mom on Twitter, I don't think she tweets. You can go to @CindyHarless1 and talk to her there. And if you have a need, if there's something that you need to talk about, or if you're considering an abortion, or you've had one and you need help, consider talking to her there. She's also all over Facebook. But the best place is probably her website, abortionrecoveryalabama.org. And that is if you're an Alabama native. She would be more than happy, I know, because she's my mother, I can speak for her in this, to connect you with someone in your state that you could talk to one-on-one, face-to-face. I don't see her saying no to that. So if you want to reach out to her on there, I know she'll make some connections for you. But if you're in the moment right now and you're freaking out and you need help and you're considering it and you're in pain and you're scared and you have a lot of people talking to you about what you should or should not do, you can go to internationalhelpline.org or call them at 866-482-5433. And you can talk to someone who's going to help you and listen to you and help you walk through this situation. Just like there's a suicide hotline, this exists and this is needed, and people need to have someone to talk to. Write that number down, share it with whoever needs it. Put it in your phone in case you run into someone or someone in your family may end up needing
Good
it.
idea.
I will repeat that number again for anyone who's listening rather than watching and seeing it scroll down the page there. But if you go to internationalhelpline.org, or you can call 1-866-482-5433, which 5433 is life, right?
Okay.
Cool. I know that because of our church's phone number. Yeah. So is there anything that you want to, Mom, that you want to share about this situation, about where you are now, about anything before we get to some questions from the chat and some fun questions just from me?
One of the things that I want people to be aware of is there's an organization out there called And Then There Were None, and it talks about it's for people that are in the abortion clinics and they want to come out of the abortion clinics, and they help them find a job and get out. But when I went to a conference last year, I was able to hear these ladies tell me exactly, or tell us exactly, what was going on in the abortion centers themselves. And they have had rusty instruments. One lady said all they used was a Fabuloso cleaner.
Fabuloso.
Yeah, fabulous.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that
I
purple
know
stuff.
that one. They sell it at the dollar store, the $1.25
Yeah.
store. That is.
Yeah, it's gone up. So that's what they use to clean the instruments. I mean, it's not safe. There are lawsuits. There are women that die at abortion. You think you're going in for a simple abortion, and you don't. There was a woman that that came to us, and she went in. She was her second child. They told her, and you were talking about abnormalities. There was something wrong with the baby. They sent her to where you called today, West Alabama.
Mhm.
When she got there, and it's public because it's a case. And when she got there, she is a medical person, and she knew something was wrong. and she kept telling them something was wrong. She kept passing out. They refused to call the ambulance because they don't want the bad publicity. And she finally, after the third time of insisting, they got an ambulance. She almost lost her life, but she did lose her womb.
Yeah. Well,
And
and
another
I
lady died there just last July. It's been 2 years now in July.
yeah, I can't name names because this is not my story. But there was a guy I knew during my college years. He wasn't from college, but I knew him during that time. And his girlfriend got pregnant, and they both agreed to have an abortion. And she had the abortion, and she sat in the recovery area for 2 hours or something afterwards. I forget what the timing was. And they were like, everything's great, go home. And then I think it was just several hours later, there was a hemorrhage that they didn't notice, they didn't see. And that girl didn't make it.
Yeah.
And because there weren't doctors that were looking after her, they were doing a procedure and moving her on.
It's 5 minutes. They treat you like cattle.
Yep.
So all I'm saying is, of course, there are going to be these issues in everything. There's all sorts of medical malpractice across the country.
Yeah,
but
that's a whole other episode we could get into. Third leading cause of death.
But it's just, I'm just saying, people want to pretend like it's clean, like it's easy, that it's safe. And they're going around telling men to have vasectomies because it's
I
reversible.
did see that.
Not always. Like
Yeah.
I went to a vasectomy consultation a couple days ago, and the doctor was like, if you do this, we say it's reversible, but it might not be. There's no guarantee that it can be reversed. And
That's
people are
what I
acting
thought.
like just like with abortion, they're acting like, oh, this is easy. This is simple. You can just, it's medically illiterate people making points and pushing an agenda is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But we have to stop pretending that this is a clean and safe thing in any case. I mean, it can be safer in some places, but you run the gamut between, I mean, money.
Right.
These are not just people who want to help. These are greedy people. And if you have ever seen some of these people at their conferences and how they talk, you would be disgusted by how they talk about things. Like I don't know how a human being says some of the stuff I've heard. Like
They usually
I said,
hate women. They usually hate and disgust women.
well, they're women.
Disgusted by women.
They were women.
Those were women. Oh, okay.
They were
It's usually
women.
men.
But yeah, okay, sorry. I find this interesting. I think we're in an interesting place in history, and half the people are talking about civil war, and I don't think I hope civil war doesn't happen. But I do hope that this is just another proof that we don't. I don't need California deciding for me what we do in Florida.
Yeah.
I don't need New York deciding what happens in Alabama.
I
New York
really
doesn't need Alabama deciding things for them either.
No. We're different countries, and I think if we recognize that, we could come to a peaceful solution. If you really sit down and think about it, you know in your heart that Georgia and California are different countries, and that should be okay. Instead of trying to subjugate one another according to each other's wishes. I'm pro-life. I don't want there to be abortion. That seems to be the majority opinion here in Georgia. And you're in California and you want there to be abortion, put an abortion water slide in California. That's your country. You do what you want over there. And the people who don't have those values come over here. Federalism was supposed to work that way. We're supposed to be a loose confederation of autonomous states. And the closer we can get to that, the more we can have a peaceful resolution between us. And so this is our way out of civil war. If we really don't want to end up having to fight each other for dominance, we have to agree to let each other live lives of different values. And in my case, that means being okay with California having more abortion access than they do now. And knowing that
and still
in Georgia,
spreading the message. Education is key. It should become unthinkable.
And maybe over time, the fruits of that will become so apparent that no one will think to do such a thing again. So, we're talking from the perspective of somebody else's past. And maybe in the future, if what I believe to be true about abortion is true, that will become apparent in time and people will abhor the practice.
Well, can I just say something on a spiritual level?
Yeah.
I believe that as we have lifted this evil of abortion off of our land, that the states, and we'll see if it proves out, okay? But I think the states that have um, banned abortion, I think God is going to start prospering them. I think they're going to start seeing more. Well, I don't think we'll see as many murders in the streets. I think that everything is going to kind of turn around a little because we've lifted this evil off of our land. Now, I can't say that for the ones that are, abortion sanctuary cities and states and that kind of thing.
Did you hear what Biden has apparently floated, according to people in his administration? Going into federal lands in red states and setting up abortion clinics
I did hear that somewhere.
in tents, allegedly. Yeah, like that won't attract bears, right?
Damn. That will definitely attract bears. Oh
yeah.
my God.
I really don't think they need to do that in Alabama.
Yeah. Well, and it's no.
I don't think that's a good idea.
like a MASH tent, but for abortions. And they're like helicoptering. Oh dear.
And I have heard that a lot of pro-life people are leaving those companies that are providing flights to states that will perform abortions. I've heard a lot of pro-life people are
because
quitting.
if they pay for your abortion, they don't have to pay for your maternity leave. Like, think about it from a financial perspective.
Yeah.
Like,
oh wow.
Yeah. There's absolutely financial incentive for Amazon or whoever it wants to pay for your abortion, because that's a lot cheaper than paying, your maternity leave for 6 months.
That's crazy. I haven't even thought about the money part.
Always think about the money part.
It's always about money. They don't care. Just like they have rainbow flags on their logos right now because it's Pride Month. They don't care about gay people. They care about money. And
yeah, it's like Disney. They care about racism and all of that. But if you see any poster that has a black character on the poster in America, that poster in China is magically black personless. They erase the black person.
That's freaking wild.
I will show you. It's crazy. But yeah, no, I think we probably need to wrap it up some.
Yeah.
There are some people in the comments who have asked questions. If you're still here and want to ask my mom or me or Jessica questions, go ahead and throw those in the comments. If you're rude to my mother, I will just block you from my channel forever. I just need you to know that. But beyond that, I do want to get through this. The first question that we saw was like immediate. And Colonel Angus asked, question for Cindy, has Cam always been like this?
Bald? No, he's not always been bald. That's a recent occurrence. Has he always been precocious and smart? And yes, he has. Yes,
she burned you good. That was good.
I am
that thrilled me. That burned.
Well, I mean, I've always been precocious and a joker and all that, but I was very, very shy as a child. That is different, like I'm not that. Let's see if I can find any. I see a bunch of questions that were directed at other people in the chat. But let me, okay, here's one. Is Cam pro-life? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, always have been, always will be. Let's see. Well, I'll ask you a question or if you have any random questions for her about me or anything else, Jessica, you can ask her that while I'm looking for these.
Oh,
And
I
then
don't
I'll have a
know.
question for
That kind of puts me on the spot.
her. Well, let me put Mom on the spot. And I think I may have asked her this last time, but I'll ask it again. What's your favorite thing about me?
Well, I was thinking about that today, and I was going to tell a story because I think it's a cute little story. When he was about 2 or 3 years old, we lived in an apartment and we were on the upper level. And of course, I went to the grocery store, and of course, he wanted to carry in some of the groceries, because he's a little boy and he wanted to help. So it was around Christmas time. And as he's climbing the steps, he gets up to the little turn thing to go up. And he throws a bag of hot dog buns over his shoulder and he says, "Ho, ho, ho, Merry, Merry Christmas." It was just the cutest little thing.
So Cam has
guess-
always Christmas more than anything.
Yes, he's a big Christmas guy. Yeah. But that was just a cute story I thought of today.
I've never met anyone who loved Christmas to the point of aggression. And I think that Cam loves Christmas to the point of aggression.
You've never been to the Philippines.
Well, that's true.
So here's another question. Are all three of you pro-life? Yes. Okay.
That wasn't
Let's
a very
see.
good question.
I see some of my friends on here. Hey, Tina.
So Colonel asks, how is your Pride Month, Mom?
It's like this. I have learned this month that God's rainbow has 6 colors. Now that's 6. And that the Pride people have 7. I'm sticking to the 6. And God called and he said, "Hey, I want my rainbow back." I'm sorry, that was really corny.
All right, let's see.
Well, I'm Cam's mom, so there's the corny.
All right, so Cam,
Some of
did you
these
see
people
the
are saying they
Twitter-
remember you when you were little, Cam.
We'll get there. I'm scrolling. Cam, did you see
Okay.
that Twitter thread I tagged you in? No.
Oh my God.
Is Cindy gone? I was going to ask her why she named her son after Kamala Harris.
Did
So
you-
irony
Go ahead.
about
I know what you're about to
being
say.
on Tucker Carlson. The biggest irony I've ever seen
Yes.
is I was waiting and I was listening and I heard Kirk Cameron on the show. And my mom has always told me, you were named after Kirk Cameron because he was just so cute. And I always thought she was just joking. And so I texted her and I'm like, "Hey, I'm about to go on this news channel right after Kirk Cameron, who apparently I'm his namesake. Is that really true?" And it is.
That you were named after Kirk Cameron?
I sure was.
Wild and crazy stuff.
Uh,
Yeah, I just saw the name going up in the credits. And I thought, yeah, I really like that.
Sweet.
What was it? Growing Pains he was on?
yeah, I loved growing. The biggest bummer about him was it was like he was very funny on that show, and he had that Christian experience when you get saved, but you stop doing the funny, you stop doing the jokes, and it was always so sad to me because I was like, you used to be so much fun to watch, and now I like some of the stuff that you do, but it's like I'd love to see you be funny again. Like
He's got a new movie out about homeschooling right now.
Well, I would say that sounds interesting, but it doesn't. a movie about homeschooling?
I'm not really sure where they go with it, but yeah, there's something there.
All right, let's see. Scrolling back down. Any more questions? Do I see any questions? Let's see. Okay, here we go.
I see Quest.
I love
I'm just
Quest.
now seeing these. I know.
It did
Quest
Cam
great.
evidence a hatred for the Washington Post as a baby?
Yes, yes. As he would. No, I can't say that because you never took a bottle.
Always loved the boobies. I did take a bottle once you put tea in
Hey,
it.
Cody. No, it was apple juice and water. You know, back in the day, we could rot your teeth before you had them. I don't know. They don't let you do that anymore. So
Oh, we're doing it too.
Um,
No,
I'm just jealous, Cody. I'm just jealous that he was able to be on Tucker Carlson, and I want to know how to get on there too. Because
make a joke about.
I'm a weirdo. I love Tucker Carlson. Well, his
You're not a
show,
weirdo.
anyway.
You're just a
Well,
boomer.
you know.
Yeah, I knew when all of this first happened, I asked him if he told his mom. I was like, "Have you told your mom yet?" And he's like, "No, I don't feel the need to tell her at this point." And then when he was going to be on Tucker, I was like, "Well, you got to tell her. She's going to be so proud of you."
And I'm like, I already have.
Right.
It was Tucker.
Yeah.
That or Laura Ingraham. Either one, I was in the game.
That was the most surreal day that Cam
right?
was on Tucker Carlson. I woke up the next morning like, did that really happen? That was crazy.
Do you think he's watching tonight?
No.
I hope Tucker Carlson is doing way better things with his time than watching our podcast.
All right. Tina asks, are you still at Save a Life?
No, I have my own ministry now. I'm at Abortion Recovery Alabama. We have 10 small groups that we have throughout Alabama, Central Alabama, where we teach forgiven and set free. Do you remember Tina? She's so sweet
I remember
and beautiful.
the name, but I was, how old was I? Because Save a Life was a long time ago.
That's true. How old was he, Tina? I don't know. Little guy.
Save a Life was very memorable because y'all would have a banquet every year. And what day would that banquet be on every year, Mama?
October the 14th, your birthday.
Every year.
Every year.
All right. Another question for Cindy. Do you think with this being passed, more conservatives will support food stamps and Medicaid?
I don't know. I'm out of my league on that kind of stuff.
Well, I think if we're looking at conservatism now, we're in a very different place than we were in the 2000s. Mm-hmm. We're in 2022. The conservatives have fractured. There's the DeSantis wing, which is a continuation of the Trump wing, but maybe stronger. We'll see how that goes. Then you've got the boomer cons, which are not boomers. That's just what you call essentially young people who act like boomer conservatives, like they were back in the 2000s. They're not. I don't think they're any more Mitt Romney conservatives. I don't think that that's a thing. I think that I think that they're dying out in a big way. I would say probably not. I don't think there's going to be a lot of change for that, but I do think that conservatives in politics will be willing to use that as a bargaining chip so that we don't lose, or not we, so that the country doesn't lose this victory in Roe versus Wade.
You know, I had always kind of had this idea in my mind. For example, Tulsi Gabbard, I think she supports Medicare for all, but also supported ending the war in Afghanistan. And I thought at the time when the war was still continuing, I thought, gosh, I would trade that. If it were end the war right now, but Medicaid for all, I'd make that bargain. Like just when I think about those kinds of things, so if the bargain were end Roe v. Wade, but increase food stamps, I would make that bargain. Now, I'm probably not what anyone would consider a conservative in any way. But if that were I am pro-life. So if that were the bargain, that if you ended abortion, ended the federal Roe v. Wade, that you would increase food stamps, I would definitely go for that. I'm fine with that.
Well, it's like the conversation about like student loans and student loan forgiveness.
Mhm.
It's like the problem with what we have right now and the unsustainability of it comes from federal student loans existing. I don't want them to exist, and I'm not saying this from like a personal or selfish place, but I think that they cause the issues that we have. They cause the price of college to
Mhm.
skyrocket. They've caused all of this stuff. If for some reason I had to pay more taxes, and let's say I didn't have any school debt or anything like that, I do have some, I would pay extra taxes as long as if they got rid of it, but at the same time discontinued federal student loans completely. But
Yeah, that'd be a
that's
fair
the
trade-off.
bargain. That's the
Yeah.
bargain. Either that or don't do it. You know what I mean?
But there are
Like,
there's always going to be trade-offs. You're never
Right.
going to get that free and perfect libertarian anarchist society that you've constructed in your head. You have to live in the reality that you live
or
in.
perfect conservative society
Or
you've
perfect
constructed in your
conservative
head.
society, whatever. Like if you can take a small victory, take it. You know, and wrote the power to decide abortion legislation going back to the states is a victory for anybody who values decentralization. So
Right.
your opinions on abortion aside, whether you think it's ethically permissible or not, if you are of that libertarian anarchist type vein and you think that the state shouldn't be in control of everyone's lives, decentralization is a victory for that. So you can't look at this as anything but a win. Your opinion on abortion notwithstanding. Sorry, it's getting late. My ability to string a sentence together is tenuous.
And my voice is just getting worse.
Okay.
So, final question that we have, and I'm just going to make you sit through me telling everyone what's going on at the end because I can do that. Because this is the only power I have over you. I'm just kidding. You can just leave. It's not like you can't close the window.
Threaten to take it out of the world.
But as you know, and now our friend Glenn is starting a new YouTube channel, and he's stealing this little portion of our show from us.
Okay.
And he said it, and he mentioned, but this is the part of the show that I think's the most important part of the show. Most of the time. Sometimes we have deep enough stuff that there are other important parts, but we like to goose up the hope, goose up the idea that we can win, that we can continue going, we can build something beautiful, etc. So a lot of people have been depressed over the last 2 years. It's been a horrible 2 years. And it's affected me, it's affected everyone, and a lot of people are very desperate and sad. So what is something well, I mean, I don't know how you answer besides the repeal of Roe versus Wade, but regardless of that, what's something right now that gives you hope and motivation to carry on and keep doing the work that you're doing and wanting to live and not die in your sleep comfortably?
I to me is I I see the world is so many things that are crashing down that scripturally, if you study end times, I just feel like my purpose in life right now is to share the gospel with as many people as I can, but because I personally believe that time is short. And so that's why I get up every morning. That's why I want to start these classes, because there are people out there that are not believers that don't know about the Lord, and they don't understand, or they're nominal Christians and they haven't got a really intimate relationship with Jesus. And and that's what I do. Our Bible study will get you to a place where the gospel is shared, but you get to see who Jesus is. It's not a church thing, it's a relationship. And hopefully I'm modeling that, and our facilitators are modeling that. So that's my hope. My hope is that he's going to be coming back soon. I truly believe that. And we need to occupy until he comes. And maybe I'm that guy that's going to lead the very last person to the Lord before the Lord comes back. Maybe it's me.
Yeah.
So I got to be sensitive and do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Another question. Do I look more tan?
What?
Well, you should. Because the doctor told you had to go out into the sun for 30 minutes a day to get your vitamin D level up. So I'm going to go with yes.
You should see my tan lines. That's all I'm
Oh my.
Cam,
Well,
this is a family show.
Yes, and this is my family.
That's true.
But I love you. I don't get to say that to many guests.
Aw.
So I love you, Mama.
Well, I love you as well.
I do want to go through the places people can find you and your work. And I want to repeat that phone number again once or twice. But if you want to follow my mom on Twitter, you can at Cindy Harless 1. CindyHarless 1. If you want to check out her ministry and what she does and perhaps donate, we do have links below in all of the videos or on our website at the episode number. So it'll be wearethemadowans.com/148. You'll find links there. But you can go to her website at abortionrecoveryalabama.org.
Nice.
And if you have a friend that's considering abortion, if you're considering abortion, if your girlfriend's considering abortion and you feel like she needs to talk to somebody, there are people out there that can help you. Like I said before, you can go to internationalhelpline.org or give them a call at 1-866-482-5433. I think that's it. Do you want to share anything else before I get into my mumbo jumbo?
I had another Christmas story, but I can't remember what it was now, so I'm going to have to pass.
Oh,
Okay.
Next time.
I can't remember what it was.
Christmas?
Maybe it was the
Eve?
time that you ran upstairs and jumped on your bed and forgot that you
knife?
left your knife was in the
Yeah.
bed.
So I had a Bowie knife, and I was sleeping
Damn.
on a futon at that point, and I had put the knife on the floor. I don't know who did or who helped me out. One of my siblings, maybe Dad, but someone had thrown it on the bed, and then, or I think maybe I put it on the bed, picking it up off the floor, perhaps, and then someone folded the futon up. And so where the fold in the futon was, the knife was jammed in,
Oh,
so it was headed straight out. And I jump on my futon, and this much knife goes into my thigh next to my rear end. And it didn't do much of anything. I think I got a couple stitches. But I will tell you that they are not lying when they tell you that if you're stabbed by a knife, you continue to feel it like it's in there still. It doesn't feel like it comes back out. Yeah, but I mean, it's because that sever, there's blood filling. It feels like it's still in you. It's bizarre.
So upset
Like
right
now?
No.
Like right now?
That's over.
At the time.
At the time, yeah. It just still feels like it's in there directly after.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's not super fun. Wouldn't recommend at all.
No. I'm very upset right now.
I've had quite a. You should tell her about the.
You should have heard the
rocking
screams from upstairs as we run in to
Golly.
figure out what is going on. I've stabbed myself in the leg.
I think maybe one more story, then I'll go to the other stuff. Do you want to tell the hamper story or the rocking horse story?
Oh, I didn't know which that you would allow me to tell. Oh, I'll tell the hamper story.
Okay, go for it.
I
I'm
think I've
open.
told it
I don't
recently.
care. They need to know what my pain is and what made me this way.
Okay.
Well, Cam has walks in his sleep. I don't know if he still does,
I
but
know.
he did walk in his sleep when he was little. And so we make sure we lock all the doors and everything. And he would walk, and he would just be like out of it. Well, there was a time when one night he got up in the middle of the night and he walked from his bedroom into the bathroom. And instead of turning to the right and lifting the lid of the toilet, he turned to the left and lifted the lid of the hamper.
No. Oh no.
And I woke
Oh.
up to a very wet, stinky bathroom
Mhm.
the next morning.
Oh no. Sleepwalking freaks me out. I don't know. That scares the heck out of me when people are like that because they say if you wake them up in the middle of their sleepwalking, they could lash out. There's something so, I don't know, ghostly about sleepwalkers.
It's weird.
Freak me out,
It's
man.
weird.
Yeah.
And
I
his
don't.
cousin had
Yeah.
night terrors, and that was even
Oh,
worse. Oh,
oh, that's
Lord.
awful.
And I think my favorite sleep thing that I had was one night I was having some kind of bad dream and I was like, and my brother, he come home from college and he heard me and he decided to like, hey Cam, it's all right, and put his hand on me and it woke me up and I went like this and was it his pinky?
No, it's
Just
his finger. It was a
I
big
thought it was his
finger.
pinky, but it was just
I
like,
don't know.
Hey,
But
you
it
know,
was completely, yeah, you jacked it up bad.
yeah.
man, you can't wake those people up. You just gotta let you
No.
just, yeah.
He
Yeah.
broke his
Well,
finger. He came running down the stairs screaming, and we had to
Oh,
take him to the ER. Yeah.
no good deed goes unpunished, I guess.
but that's the thing. Like if you know someone's having a bad enough dream to be making noises,
Yeah.
don't touch them. You don't know how they're going to react or what's going on in their head.
My husband's a sleep talker, so we'll be dead asleep 3 o'clock in the morning, both in bed, and he'll start laughing, and it scares the crap out of me because I'm dead asleep, and all of a sudden the person next to me is laughing. It wakes. I mean, I don't know what night terrors are, but it is a terrifying thing that happens at night. And he's never mad or angry. It's always like a jovial kind of thing, but he laughs and he tells jokes. He's always having a good time. But for me, it's wholly terrifying. So, yeah. But I would take sleep talking over sleepwalking any day because that stuff freaks me out.
All right.
All right.
What bad word did you say? Just say the letter so I know if I have to put an explicit on this or not.
The D word. It wasn't.
Damn.
It was the DI word.
Oh no, we're fine then. I don't have to put an
Okay.
explicit on this one. Okay, that's all I need to know.
Okay.
So, but let's wrap it up. I love you, Mom. Thank you for coming on. I'm proud
Thanks,
of you.
Cindy.
And I'm glad that you were the person who raised me and taught me to not just empathize with one portion of the population, but with all of it, including those who we never see. And I love you for that and for everything else. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I'm
Love
also
you
your
guys.
favorite son because I was on Tucker. So for the rest of you, I do want to tell you what's coming up. Next week's
And
going
your
to be
brother
pretty.
voted for Biden.
Yeah, that was my tweet. I'm sure I told him about it and he thought it was hilarious. So that's good.
Okay.
So next week is exciting to me. We're going to be talking to Justin Marler, who was the guitarist for the band Sleep, which is like a stoner metal band. And he played the first album as their lead guitarist. And then after that went out and they were starting to get big and they were starting to gain a name and they were starting to become something and they're well known within that space. He left the band and he went to a Orthodox monastery and then ended up living as a monk in the Orthodox monastery for 8 years. He wrote a zine from there to help people who are suicidal, to get away from that and to come to Jesus and stuff like that. But he left what was a lucrative career to go and be an Orthodox monk. And I'm excited to dig into that story because that's not something you hear about
Absolutely.
every day.
Right.
So that's next week. His name is Justin Marler. I think it's going to be really cool. Following that, we have our friend Hex coming on. He was raised in the Nation of Islam, which is a bizarre set of beliefs. And I want to know what it's like growing up in the Nation of Islam and having Farrakhan be one of your thought leaders. Bizarre stuff. So that Hex is coming after that. Then we're having this. We found a young lady, Kayla, who's going to be coming on. She was a part of like the Hebrew Roots movement, the Torah
Tag me
observant
on that
Christianity, and she came back to lowercase Orthodox Christianity, so historic Christianity, and I just want to dig into that. I have a lot of issues with some of that and where it leads, and I want to talk about it, and I want to talk about what she had, so that's going to be fun. And then finally, our friend Kim's coming back for our last show of the month. Last show of the month is a pressure release show. This means we have fun. We'll talk about what she wants to talk about. It'll be more open. We'll allow for more questions. It'll be a good time.
Although I gotta say, I had a pretty good time on this one too. So
well, it's all me.
Wow.
She can claim it's all her because she raised me. See what I'm saying?
Jessica, you're a sweetheart. I don't know how you put up with him, but I appreciate
I do my best.
you and Kaylee both. You know,
I am both. I need you to know that I am both cute and funny, and that's why.
And very, very tan, apparently.
Yeah, well, tanner than I was.
And please not forget the word humble.
Yes, I am. Like Moses, I am the most humble person on the planet.
Wow.
I need you to know that. But beyond that, here's the list of the other stuff. If you want to follow me on Twitter at HamCarlos, if you want to follow Jessica at SoupCanarchist, if you'd like to join our Patreon and help us continue this thing, make more episodes, do more things, and I have some ideas for Patreon that I am going to discuss with Jessica and try to figure some cool stuff out to add to that from some requests from people on Twitter. Okay. You can go to patreon.com/themadones if you'd like a shirt. I think my favorite shirt we have right now, Mom, I don't know if you've seen it. I made a shirt with the Cairo on it. You know the Cairo? The little PX in my tattoo here. Okay. I made a large white one it's really cool. But we have our logos. We'll do seasonal prints, which we just did Christmas this last year. So Christmas will come up. Maybe we'll do a spooky one in the fall. I don't know. We'll figure some stuff out. But if you go to wearethemadaones.com/store, you can find all of that there. If you're listening, you can watch every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time at youtube.com/themadOnes. Go there. Even if you don't want to use it, hit subscribe, hit like, share it with friends. We're trying to grow. We're trying to build up those watch hours so that we can get a little extra money from the man. If you'd like to watch it and you hate YouTube, you can find us on Rockfin, you can find us on Odyssey, and you can find us on Rumble now. So we're hitting as many places as we can, and we're also on every podcatcher. If you want to listen from the website or grab the RSS feed directly from there, wearethemadones.com. And that's it. That's all the things.
That's it. You got all the things. Good job.
All of the things. So with that, I love you, Mama.
I love you, Kim. I love you, Jessica.
Cindy, it was so nice to talk to you again. I'm glad we got to discuss this topic with you because you were like the number one person I would have wanted to talk to about this. So, thank you for coming.
I really enjoyed it.
And thank you for still doing this show with me, even though every now and then I get uninspired and episodes aren't as good as they could be, Jessica.
Okay.
All right. And so with that, my dear audience, you have a chance to be a light in the world. So go light it up.